everyone, it's Erin with Hail Varsity. I'm joined by Greg, also of Hail Varsity. He is our recruiting extraordinaire. And I have to be honest, it took me 3 times to get this intro together because it is just one of those Mondays. But Greg, how are you?
I am very well. Things are firing well over here at Smith household, so I apologize to you that you're having issues, but it's okay. We're rolling with it, right?
Not so much here. I mean, I am one of the people that lost power this weekend with the storms. If you are somebody who is watching this and you are located in Omaha, Nebraska, I hope that you, or with surrounding communities, I understand it went into, Plattsmouth and other areas around. I hope that you have power. If you don't, I hope you have power soon. And I hope you're staying safe and hopefully cool as it's supposed to warm up again. But what a weekend. So that is, for me, probably why my brain is not yet woken up for whatever reason, because I had quite the weekend. But the recruiting questions never stop, and these things, don't take a break. So here we are. We are here to talk about recruiting. Greg, all right, we're going to pick your brain. This week's question comes from Andrew on Twitter. He asked Greg, what is Scott Frost's ideal quarterback style? Hard to complain with what Nebraska has, but interested if there is a shift away from quarterback running and dual threat type guys. Greg, what are your thoughts?
I do think that there is a shift. So I think that Andrew is perceptive there. I don't necessarily think that it's away from necessarily dual threat guys. I think that the shift is going to guys being able to be more true dual threats. I think that in particular, Nebraska's 2021 quarterback, Heinrich Harburg, out of Kearney Catholic, and then Richard Torres, the current commit for the 2021 class or 2022 class, are both guys that I think are throwers first or passers of the ball first that can also run and are athletic, right? And I think that that's different from the previous 2 quarterbacks, Logan Smothers and Luke McCaffrey, who I think were more athletes that needed to have their passing games refined. And I still think that Adrian Martinez is the prototype for what you want to have. And that's been kind of interesting to see that evolve as you've seen things kind of shift and change even during his time on campus. But I think there is a shift, but I do not think it's away from guys that can run. I just think that with the last 2 guys, Harburg and Torres in the current class, that it's more of the running is not the first thing that you think of when you think of their skill sets.
And I mean, it makes sense for that to be how the quarterback is sort of trending, because when you look at the type of offense that I understand. So before anybody watching this video comes for me, let me finish. I understand that we are heading into year 4 of Scott Frost's tenure at Nebraska. So there's some hesitation to say too much of what the offense should or shouldn't be. But at least the understanding when Frost came to Nebraska is for this offense to run efficiently and to fire essentially on all cylinders, you have to have really, really strong wide receivers and tight ends. And you also have to have a really strong running game. Now, that's sort of like obvious for any team to be successful on offense. But my point here is what we have instead seen is Adrian Martinez running far more than he likely should be. And Adrian has the ability to run. Now, I would say, is he like Taylor Martinez level fast? And I'm using Taylor because ESPN incorrectly identified Adrian as Taylor. So tying those 2 together once again. But he still is capable, but he really shouldn't be running like that. That doesn't mean he needs to be stuck in the pocket all the time, but he really should not have been running as much as he is. So when you're looking at the type of quarterback that this team really wants and needs to run the offense successfully, you don't need a quarterback, or you shouldn't need a quarterback that has to run as much as, say, Adrian has so far.
Yeah, and you also and part of that, the one thing you didn't say in there is that you want to be able to slide some of that running workload to the running backs, right?
Right. That's,
And
I guess
I
I
think
meant.
that
But
is,
yes, yes.
that's part of how we got there. Is it was kind of out of necessity because Adrian, like you said, is good at running the ball, but you also had the struggles weirdly at running back. But when this offense is also in its history under Scott Frost has done very well, it's featured at least one running back that's going to get you somewhere between 900 and 1100 900 yards, right? Like, and
Mhm.
then another guy that's also going to get, a few hundred yards too. Nebraska hasn't quite seen that yet. And I think that that's been a part of a missing element. But you want your quarterbacks in this offense, especially with other thing that's been missing in this offense at Nebraska, you want the quarterbacks to be able to deliver the deep ball down the field too and have those big plays. Nebraska has missed that. As you see, and part of that, I think, is that the style of quarterback that they're moving towards now, it seems like bigger arms, stronger arms, can get the ball through the wind in the Big Ten. You know that that's going to be an issue, can fit the ball into tight windows because they have better arm strength, because there's going to be tight windows because the defenses are better in this league. I think that those are just little things that when you start to stack it up, you see why the last two quarterbacks look a certain way versus the previous two.
And that's the thing is you as a coach, as you're developing your team and you want a certain type of quarterback, like Greg said, and I kind of just like implied, but I'm glad that you were more specific with it, is that you you can't go and take a quarterback if you're moving toward if you're shifting away from a quarterback running as much, so not as much as your prototypical dual threat, but more of typically a pass first, run only if necessary type of quarterback, that
Mhm.
only works with those running backs. So
Right.
a lot of other things have to, you can certainly recruit a certain type of quarterback, but the rest of the offense really needs to match that style then too. So I guess when you look at it, that shift is probably saying that Nebraska feels good about where its running situation is going. It feels good enough about uh, the running backs and potentially all of the other skill position players on the offense to move that direction. Because if you didn't, wouldn't you technically be looking for more of a dual threat anyway? Because you think we have to make up for kind of what is lacking in other areas. So to me, it says Nebraska feels fairly confident in where things are going with the offense, but it's always hard to know until you actually see it on the field.
Right, and the other point on that too is not just the running backs, but outside with the wide receivers. I always make the joke that Nebraska's not going to stop recruiting wide receivers. They run 3 and 4 of them out there at a time, fairly regularly. So you're going to need to have those guys continue to progress too, because you're like the offense is as we found out over time, the offense is more complicated for wide receivers than I think people gave it credit for. Maybe I think it's
Mm-hmm.
fair to say in the beginning of this tenure. And so it just takes a little bit to figure out all of the ins and outs of what you need to do in this offense. And once you get it, it makes it look easier than it actually is. And I think that that goes for all parts of this offense, which we've seen be so prolific at a number of spots around the country.
It's going to be interesting, but it's a good question from Andrew. In fact, I think Andrew, what's interesting about that is it's very intuitive to pick up on the type of players that not just talking to Nebraska, but you can sort of tell where a team may or may not be taking things based on obviously who they're recruiting and the type of athletes they are. You can kind of see, like as Greg talks about, you know, fairly often in the recruiting notebook, you can see where the focus might be, even on defense, if they're putting so much attention into one spot. You can see how they're shifting things. Obviously, some of it comes from a place of need and necessity. You have to be able to have depth, but sometimes you start to see a shift in the type of players
Yep.
just by looking at the recruitment, looking at the offers, looking at who the team is targeting on the recruiting trail, because they're obviously looking for somebody that they feel is going to step in and fit what it is that they're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you've seen that shift, and to the Nebraska staff's credit, I think that you've seen that shift at a handful of positions during Scott Frost's tenure here. And I think that you do have to give them credit for making those shifts on the fly, because it's not easy as a coach to also swallow that bit of pride to say, hey, what we thought we were going to do coming in here, we might need to shift a little bit and change course here to actually have the success that we want to have. So I do give them credit for that as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to continue watching. We obviously know Scott Frost and Mario Verduzco like to take one quarterback per class. So you'll continue to see how that ebbs and flows and who they might be looking at and how that might shift, or if it shifts, a different direction. But for right now, it seems like, yes, they're getting away from a quarterback who would be a run first. Not that again, Adrian shouldn't be a run first quarterback. He certainly wasn't recruited as one, but had to sort of step into that role and become that player. But hopefully, it signals an offense that is going to get that get away from that for its quarterback so that they can focus on pass first, run if necessary. But yeah, if you want to know more about this, Greg always talks more about these recruiting questions each Monday in his recruiting notebook, which goes live at 6 p.m. Central on hailvarsity.com. But you might as well just go ahead and book Hail Varsity, because the recruiting notebook goes live Sunday through Thursday, 6 p.m. Central, and there are always a lot of topics to dive into. Greg's been looking at, both the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and who might be standing out, because a lot of people are really looking at players currently on the team and not so much the recruits coming in. So there's so much to dive into. If you haven't, you can go check all of that out right now at hailvarsity.com. And you can certainly go subscribe as well. That is available on our website and get access to all of the premium content. But Greg, as always, thank you for your knowledge and expertise. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you want to ask a question too, go follow him, shoot him a note on Twitter at Greg Smith HV or at Hail Varsity, and keep having the conversation on YouTube, Facebook. We really appreciate it. With all of that, I am now going to go try to maybe drink some more coffee. Feels like I need to. All right. Have a good rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.